Hi, my name is Omid Daryani. I'm the Senior Brand Manager for the EverQuest franchise. Welcome to the Roundtable. I'm here today with Michael Mann. Michael, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. I work on EverQuest Next as the lead combat designer. I also work on Landmark and do various systems there like crafting and harvesting. I get to do a lot of fun things like create classes, like I said, harvesting and all sorts of systems like that.
So today we're talking about the question, should there be modern concepts like guns and ninjas in EverQuest Next? And we'll come back to the modern thing because I think that's kind of funny. But so what we saw here is that about 47% of people said no, absolutely not, hell no. But then over the other answers, there were about 53% of people that said some version of yes, as long as it's handled correctly, or let's look at a case by case. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. We actually were pretty divided on this internally as well. So this has been a great opportunity to find out what everybody thinks. And you know, as we went through and I read all the sites and checked out the forums and your guys' responses, we noticed that you know, people were quite concerned that we were going to just take ninjas and take guns and just drop them into the game, you know, like we were just going to do it wholesale without checking to make
like
sure that...
Like literally putting an M16 in a ninja's hand and go.
You know, dual wielding AKs and jumping across the table or whatever, you know. But that's not at all what we were looking at doing. And we were actually, you know, I have a great quote here by somebody named Geisen, and he says, you know, that he has no problem with these sorts of things in the game, but he says, you know, that he doesn't want them included unless lore supports their presence. You know, that concern is true for all sorts of things. And we make sure that we take these concepts or we look at things and we run them through an EverQuest filter to make sure that they fit in our world.
Yeah, and I mean, there is precedent for having guns and ninjas and things like that in fantasy before. And that, I mean, I think one of the reasons that modern is funny, and you know, a whole bunch of us like Dave George and Terry Michaels, we all looked at this question. Nobody had any problem with modern in there, and then we saw the comments on the thread, we're like, God, why did we put that there? Because, you know, guns go all the way back to like arquebuses, which, you know, your dwarf can wield in D&D. And, you know, for the people, I don't know how old you guys are, there was even Oriental Adventures, which is so old that it's now politically incorrect. So, you know, guns and ninjas, you know, go into fantasy. And we also have to talk about, is it just strictly Western fantasy or, you know, do we have a broader concept? But I think, too, that putting it through the filter is the important thing, making sure that things make sense.
No, right? I agree, yeah. And for instance, if we were to have guns, there's a precedent set in the other EverQuest games that, you know, there's clockwork technology and things like that. And so if we were to do guns, they would sort of be along the clockwork style or like, you know, flintlock pistols and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, so ninjas could be like shadow assassins or, you know, something that would fit in and be thematic, but, you know, you would feel it either way.
Exactly. We feel that it's you know, important to not close ourselves off from all of these, you know, these sorts of things that we're able to produce because we're making a really broad game, right? We want you to be able to multi-class and do a lot of these really cool things. And if we were to, you know, cut off options, we feel that we wouldn't have anywhere to grow and we wouldn't be able to make all of the choices that people want. And so we kind of want to keep our options open, but at the same time make sure that these things fit in with EverQuest, that they feel like EverQuest. It is an EverQuest world after all. So,
so is it fair to say that pretty much like the direction that we're looking at is that we're looking at these things case by case. You know, we really want to make sure they fit. We have precedent for things fitting in the past, and you know, we'll always make sure that things are EverQuest-y, so you don't have, you know, double pirate ninjas like, you know, doing double jumps with, you know, 2 AK-47s, right?
Yeah, definitely EverQuest-y, I think is probably the filter we're using. So.
Excellent. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're going with this one. And, you know, as we've said with all of the questions, the roundtable is still open. Let us know what you think about that. We're still reading. We're still discussing it internally. So thank you guys again so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.